Hello everyone and welcome to the Vintage Side. In this video, I will be reading a short story published in the Australian Women's Mirror magazine from June of 1935. This short story is called Hiker's Holiday by Ursula Bloom. No holiday? The three girls in the office stared at each other. On the other side of the petition, a young man chewed the end of a pencil and thought unmutterable things. Miss Simpkins slammed the lid of her typewriter. "I don't care. I can go to my aunt's." "I don't see that it matters," said Miss Nixon. "The firm says you can take your holiday if you'd like, only there won't be any pay. They've come through hard times, same as everybody else. I've got a bit put by." Everybody knew old Nixon had money. The brand of silk stockings she wore went to prove it. They could not imagine why she was earning her living at all. It was Greta, curled up in the corner, who said nothing. She was the lowest paid of all three, but then she did not suppose she was worth any more. Her shorthand was not good, and she was not in the least suited to an office career. But you've got to do something. She had been aching for her holiday, simply yearning for it. Her first year of hard work in the city had taken all her energy out of her. Tarry, crowded streets, buses lumbering along, the noise, the breathlessness of it all. Soon, she had promised herself, there will be my precious fortnight's holiday, going for long walks in the open, bathing. Now, none of them would happen, because, of course, a holiday without pay was unthinkable. She could not afford it. "I'll go just the same," said Miss Nixon firmly. There was the aunt for Miss Simpkins, a rather rich aunt, one gathered, with tennis courts and adjacent golf links and young men. But for Greta, nobody at all. Miss Nixon and Miss Simpkins faded into the holiday. Alone, Greta was left to grind out letters. Work was falling off. "Never get much at this time of year," said the boss, "so you'll be able to cope with it." Every day there came a longing for the greenness of the land, the whisper of the trees, to be breathing fresh air, seeing fresh sights. And also there was Ron. Ron was the young man who, seeing the notice about the impossibility of holidays, had chewed the end of his pencil and said nothing. He also was in the unenviable position of not being able to take advantage of wageless holidays. It was quite true that he had an aunt and that he had expectations from her, but she was a hard old lady. She didn't want him there and said so. "Men should work," said the aunt rigidly. "When are you taking your holiday?" he asked Greta. She was sitting back tiredly in her chair, sipping tea from an office cup. "No holiday for me at all," she said brutally. "Same here. Bit sickening." She had thought him rather high-hat. He read highbrow books and did not mix with the girls much. Felt himself above them, Miss Nixon said, and had given her lips an extra touch of that new red-orange stick, and had added, "Extraordinary how some fellows fancy themselves." I shan't encourage him, Greta thought. He looked so forlorn, though, that she had to do something about it. So she said, "I had looked forward to my holiday." "So had I. Was going to hike." "I was going to the beach." "I adore walking," he said. She eyed him curiously. "Should have thought you'd have preferred a car." And her round blue eyes were a little scathing. "A car? No fear. Shank's pony for me. See more of the countryside. Besides, how could I keep a car on £2.10 a week?" Of course he couldn't. "I've never walked much," she said. He mentioned it again the next day. A hot and maddening Saturday with special trains running to the holiday resorts. One of those days when your greatest longing is to get away from town. He came and stood in the office near her desk just after 11:30. The boss, murmuring something about catching the train to the Hawkesbury, had gone early. "Look here," said Ron, and his hair was sticking up all over his head and his dark eyes were wide. "About this holiday business of ours. If we don't do something about it now, nothing will ever happen. What about this weekend?" "What do you mean?" she said a little jerkily. "I'm going hiking. Care to join me?" A tram tore past along outside. From the open window came the fumes of petrol and tar, the hot, airless smell of the city street in midsummer. She felt that if she had to bear it another instant, she would scream. "I'd adore it," she said. It was one of those wild, impetuous ideas that happen to young people. She had just time to rush back to her lodgings and collect her things. Comfy shoes, a Mac in case of need, the flannel shorts she had bought in preparation for the expected beach holiday, and a cotton shirt. She met him at the station, hot and sticky. "I've raked up every available penny," he said as they scrambled into the train, which took them out to the country. "I've got 14 and 5 pence. What have you got?" She trickled the contents of her bag onto her lap. 10 and 9 pence, she said. "We'll have to be careful, but there are motor car camping grounds we can go to. They lend you cooking utensils and things and give you a shakedown. I suppose you won't mind a shakedown." She thought she would love it. She could imagine nothing nicer. Here they were, two young people setting out upon the search for a holiday, one weekend, a breath of country air. "But I say," she said suddenly, "what about you and a shakedown?" Ron, whom they had thought so high-hat, Ron, who read highbrow books and talked Shaw and Ibsen and Strindberg until Miss Nixon and Miss Simpkins were nearly sick. "Not our type," they said with indignation. "Me?" He looked at her seriously, and for the first time she saw that he really did look rather nice. Khaki shorts and shirt, brown arms, no hat, and that rumpled, ruffled schoolboy head. "Me? Why, I think you've got me all wrong. I'm a bit shy with women. Those other girls scare me stiff. I can't be natural with them. Let's start off and get some country into our lungs. I'm not high-hat. Get that right out of your head. I'm not stuck up and standoffish. I like simple things best." They got out at a country station. There was a river nearby, and they could hear the sound of its tumbling over stony shallows. There were trees whispering and a light wind blowing, a little wind that gets downhearted before it ever gets as far as the city. They started walking out of the station yard. "Where are we going?" she asked. Ron did not know. "Does it matter?" he inquired. They turned away from the dusty road, where the cars spun by, to the green banks of the river. Here was bird song and the sounds of grasses stirring together, and the distant splash of oars. It was all very entrancing. They had bought apples and sandwiches at the station, and they sat down in a field to eat them. "It was a grand idea of yours," she said. "How did you come to think of it?" "It was the sort of thing I've always wanted to do and have never done," he said. "I mean, with somebody else. The right companion makes such a difference." She was flattered that he liked her. They tramped miles through the valley. At last, they came to a hostel where they decided to stay for the night. It was fun round the campfire with the others. Greta found herself drawn into a friendly family party. Here was fun and gaiety, spontaneousness and joy. They sang songs. Late at night, when the fire was trodden out, Greta lay tucked up in a bunk in a room with a few other girls, and she dreamt that she was never going back to the office again and that life was heavenly. She felt a glow with the fire of health. They were up at dawn, a dawn such as you never see in the city, all rosy and opal. The lark was rising to the gate of golden heaven, sweet with the promise of the new day. She saw Ron running down to bathe in the river, and she ran too. The water was deliciously breathtaking. Then, after a moment or so, it seemed to grow warm. They came out and sat together on the bank. "If only we could stay here forever," she said. "I know. I've always loathed city life and the environment of it all. I'd like to keep a pig farm," he confessed. "But we thought you were highbrow. Do pigs sound so lowbrow? Surely a man may read what he chooses and still be fond of the country. I love all the great writers because they realize so fully that all joy is gathered from the simplicities of life. This has got to end," she told herself. "I'm seeing him now as a new person. In the office, he'll be just the same as he used to be, shy, aloof, and distant. What a shame the force of circumstances is sending us back to that." "A penny for your thoughts," he said after a while. Because she was very young, she could not think of a subterfuge, something smart and clever, such as she was sure Miss Simpkins or Miss Nixon would devise. She told him the truth. "I was thinking the same thing," he said, "about going back." He sat there, his arms hunched about his knees. "Supposing we never went back?" he asked. "But we couldn't. What could we do wandering about? Besides, where would we get the money?" "I know." Again he was silent. watching the stream. They heard calls from the camp and turned to see waving arms. "Hi, you two! Breakfast!" "Race you to the fire," Ron suggested. They ran like children. I didn't understand him before. That was the trouble, she told herself. And all the while, the disturbing thought of going back was hurting like mad in her heart. They packed up and walked on afterwards. They retraced their steps, only this time, instead of travelling along the valley, they went along the hilltops. They saw the earth lying in folds before them, blue mist of vales and purple distant of the far hills. They halted for lunch in a little wood. He was very quiet. "What is it?" she asked at last. "What I said this morning. This weekend hasn't made things better." "No," she confessed. "It's made them worse. Much worse. We can't go on sticking it out. We've got to know more of each other. We've got to do something to get away from that office. I've got an aunt." "An aunt?" She thought of Miss Simpkins' aunts. "Yes. Her father went in for a small holding, and he didn't do too badly by it. The old girl is quite well off. I'm going to see her next weekend. I'm going to ask her to help me." "What in?" "I'm going to ask for the usual things. An acre and a cow, 6 hens, and the use of my own hands and the strength in me. And what's more, I'm going to do well." She looked up at him from where she was laying on the ground. "Ron!" "Well, I can do it. I believe anybody can do anything they want as long as they try." "When you get back to the office, you'll change your mind." He shook his head. "I won't. Yesterday made me realize I couldn't go on this way. I was talking to a fellow at the camp. His father knows of just the place. I believe in taking your chances as they come and not letting go. We took advantage of this." She nodded. Somehow she felt strangely tight about the throat. They ate their meal in silence, and an impertinent little bird came chirping to them demanding food. "It's all very well for you," she said at last. "You've got the chance to get away. I haven't any chance. The era of the land girl is as dead as mutton." She knew that now the city would be stuffier than ever, and that she would never be able to face it out till February had drifted to its close. "You don't think I'd leave you there to wilt, do you?" he said. "Not after this. It's been such fun. What would the girls say? We have the same silly ideas." They wandered back to the station a little footsore, a little weary, but full of exquisite joy which is born only of simple things. They had each other. Nothing else mattered. The girls at the office talked a lot when they knew. "Extraordinary how that wily little thing managed to get round that young fellow while we were away," they said. "How did she do it? She's not much to look at, and she doesn't use the right lipstick. But then, love is not a matter of lipstick." The end. Thank you so much for watching today, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I have many magazines like this one available for purchase on my Etsy shop. And if you would like to find me elsewhere online, I have a Ko-fi page, Instagram, Facebook, website, and a Pinterest page. Please remember to like and subscribe and to ring the bell so you don't miss future videos here on my channel. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!